With a huge road win last night, technically everything is still in play for this Missouri basketball team. Let's talk about these clutch performances. Right now, I'm Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And in my preview of the Texas A&M game, I said, hey, if the Tigers dominate the paint like they did against South Carolina, they've got a chance. And, of course, the Tigers pull it out despite just a tremendous shooting performance by the Aggies. And I would say, hey, the NCAA tournament, to me, that is now the expectation. But also at 7-4 in the league now, the Tigers are in a 5-way tie for fourth place. And if the if the SEC tournament started today, which that would be weird on February 12th. But if it did, the Tigers would actually have the 5-way tiebreaker and would have a bye, the double bye there in the SEC tournament. Now, how does that work? Beats the heck out of me, and that will certainly change here over the next few weeks. And by the way, the Tigers are only 2 games out of first place, too. Yes, they have the tiebreaker against Florida as well. Just the facts, ma'am. Don't shoot the messenger. Because here's the deal. To be brutally honest with all of you, the Tigers actually winning the Southeastern Conference, well, it's still a real long shot, even though obviously technically with 7 games left to play now, 2 games behind the Gators with the tiebreaker. Hey, obviously you can see a path there. The problem is, well, take a peek over at FanDuel Sportsbook and you'll find Missouri is still plus 12,500, so 125 to 1 to win the SEC. A lot of that has to do with Florida. They have a pretty favorable schedule here down the stretch. So obviously Missouri would need Florida to lose at least 2 basketball games, win its final 7. You can see why Florida right now still a heavy favorite to win the league at -900. Arkansas, second best odds at 12 to 1. So it looks like another SEC title for the Gators is forthcoming. But regardless, that was just an incredible victory for Missouri last night. And to me, probably the most fun I've had watching Missouri play all season. In particular, boy, those final few minutes was just great back and forth college basketball. And not just Missouri, but boy, Zach Clemens in particular was just inside, outside, just impossible for Missouri to get a handle on. And by the way, Agee, the kid who got his shot blocked by Shawn Phillips at the end of the game, he got a good stop himself on Mark Mitchell with a little over a minute left. And with the Tigers trailing at that point, it definitely did not look good. But again, the Tigers defensively in the second half played really good basketball. Got a stop with about 40 seconds left, a timeout, and a play that Missouri had run earlier in the second half. A back screen and a lob from Mark Mitchell to Shawn Phillips. Well, perfectly executed again for the second time of the half. That was an 8-assist ball game for Mark Mitchell, by the way. And he and Jaden Stone, Missouri's 2 best players, I would say so far this season, certainly. Didn't have a lot of offense, but obviously T.O. Barrett, Trent Pierce, Shawn Phillips had great plays down the stretch, but those 2 in particular, I thought. Pierce, obviously, with 23 points, 9 rebounds. He was tremendous in the ball game, and I think I recently said I think that's the best Trent Pierce has played in a Missouri uniform. That might be 2 in a row or 2 out of 3. I don't know. Regardless, Trent Pierce is playing his best basketball right now in his career. There's no doubt about it to me. And by the way, when A&M, of course, had it that final possession, did you think anybody clearly had possession there with about 4 seconds left to truly be granted a timeout? But regardless, Agee, who had the great stop on Mitchell, well, just tremendous defense by Shawn Phillips, who at times had been attacked one-on-one defensively in the second half. But in a critical moment, not only did Phillips finish that lob play impressively, but his defense I thought was absolutely perfect. And not only moved his feet, stayed on the ground, used his height perfectly, and was able to get a hand on the ball in a shot clock, or excuse me, a blocked shot right at the buzzer there. Just a tremendous, tremendous play by Shawn Phillips. And by the way, Missouri literally played 7 guys in the game. Lots of Missouri fans, of course, including myself at times, have thought, boy, Dennis could tighten up these rotations a little bit. That's not been the case over the last few weeks. Missouri has essentially played 7 guys and almost literally did last night. Trent Burns actually played 1.3 seconds, and it was a productive 1.3 seconds. At the end of the first half, he actually knocks down a full court pass. It was a desperation heave there by the Aggies. So to me, considering Texas A&M played 10 guys, played at home, played at a very, very fast pace, of course, with full court press, not only after makes, but after misses as well, as King McClure pointed out on the broadcast. I would just say big-time props to Dennis Gates for managing those minutes properly, and also for the players and their conditioning. For Mark Mitchell to be able to play in that particular fast-paced kind of ball game and play 38 minutes is really impressive, and really just as impressive, if not more so, despite 5 fewer minutes. T.O. Barrett had a lot to deal with in that basketball game. 33 minutes, just 2 turnovers. Great work by T.O. Barrett and company, and really the whole team handling the press, I thought. Missouri has had a lot of turnover problems at times this year, just committing 9 against Texas A&M and buckyball, as they were calling it. I thought that was great stuff, and obviously really encouraging to see Trent Pierce, who missed obviously a ton of time this season at the beginning of the year, to see him play 33 minutes and play very, very well was incredibly encouraging. And speaking of buckyball, well, Bucky McMillan, the A&M coach, their rookie head coach here, well, rookie in the SEC anyway, said, quote, "We couldn't stop them and we could not combat their size. I don't know if I've coached a game where we've literally tried as many things on defense as we did to stop them, but still couldn't." So obviously a big compliment there from the A&M head coach. And I'll just say I was impressed with him as well, considering he has basically almost literally a new roster. Everybody who played significant minutes last night anyway is a new guy. Did not play for Texas A&M last season. Is either a transfer or a true freshman. So to be able to play what is in a fairly unusual and demanding style of basketball, to get his players to buy in like that and have the kind of season that Texas A&M is having in his first year in the league is really, really impressive. And I got to say, the most interesting part of how he plays basketball to me is, as again, King McClure pointed out on the broadcast last night, they're pressing on basically defensive rebounds too. They're swarming the defensive rebounder, and that had to be frustrating for of course, Shawn Phillips and Mark Mitchell and others. But again, credit to the entire Missouri team for only having 9 turnovers in the basketball game. Just that swarming style, swarming defensive rebounds, just an interesting strategy, one I'll be definitely keeping my eye on Texas A&M a little bit more as we get down the stretch here. But of course, plenty more to get to on this Missouri basketball game, including, by the way, great minutes from Jacob Cruz, I thought, as well. So let's get into even more of this basketball game coming up here in just a little bit. But you know what? First, a quick word from my friends at Mazda.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And while Jacob Cruz's stats are not going to, well, just his total points and rebounds, that type of thing, are not going to blow anybody away from yesterday, well, he was excellent when he was out there. Made all 3 of his shot attempts, including a couple three-pointers. Made all 3 of his free throws when he was fouled on a 3-point attempt. And had 4 really, I thought, key rebounds in just 22 minutes as well. And I thought did a nice job using his size on defense a few times too. And that's all I can really ask from Jacob. He's, in a way, defensively, he's kind of the ultimate tweener. He's not a big guy per se, but he is 6'9" or so, and certainly tall enough to make a difference defensively. But he's not a guard either, and he's going to have trouble out on the perimeter. So again, all I really ask for Jacob, who is obviously a huge plus offensively, just fight on the defensive glass and use your size the best you can. That's just try to be in the best position. That's all I can really ask from him. And I thought he did a great job of all of those things yesterday. And while he and Trent Pierce, by the way, and really I think this is just a thing throughout college basketball that old man Miller here is just going to have to accept, but nobody really boxes out anymore. It's just something I'm going to have to accept, I suppose. I don't coach, so who's going to listen to me? But again, if Pierce and Cruz simply use their size on the defensive glass, I'm completely fine. And not only fine with it, I encourage them to be the perimeter assassins that they are on the other end of the court. I'm new school enough to understand that kind of offensive basketball, but old school enough to realize that defensive rebounding is never going to go out of style. So again, props to Trent Pierce and Jacob Cruz, who I thought did a really good job on the boards yesterday. And again, part of the reason Missouri won that game is because Missouri got so much production outside of Jaden Stone and Mark Mitchell. Again, Mitchell obviously with 8 assists in the ball game was plenty productive. And to me, Stone played fine too. He just couldn't buy a 3. Was 1 of 7 on the ball game. Didn't mind any of his shots, including, well, the pull-up on the fast break, the one that he did make, that was maybe the most aggressive shot of all. I encouraged him to make that shot. So I didn't have any problem the way he played whatsoever. And by the way, Texas A&M, considering they had 9 different guys make a three-pointer, if you had told me that before the game and showed me that they'd shoot 50 from the floor, 45 from 3, and 80 from the line, I wouldn't have exactly liked Missouri's chances in that ball game. So, and also, another thing I wrote down, first 10 minutes of this basketball game were particularly pleasurable to watch to me, despite the small deficit, trailing 27-29 at the time. Well, there weren't any fouls called. That was what was beautiful about it. Literally 0 in Missouri's case for, I believe, the first 16 minutes of the basketball game, something that a few Texas A&M commentators pointed out and weren't too pleased about. But I would just point out to them, whether you thought the Aggies got the bad end of the whistle or not, A&M wasn't called for a whole lot of fouls during that period either. But of course, the most predictable thing in the world, the first 10 minutes of the second half, all of a sudden everything was a foul. And 8 minutes into said second half, well, both teams are in the single bonus. And to the point, by the way, I mean, it's absolute nonsense. I mean, every touch foul was called so much in the second half that I even saw a Texas A&M analyst online complaining that Shawn Phillips should have been called for a foul on that last play because, quote, well, it was a foul the entire second half. I mean, my goodness. It was definitely called much tighter, but come on, man. Shawn Phillips played absolutely perfect defense there. But I will say, fortunately, it didn't become as big of a free throw shooting contest. the last 12 minutes of the ball game or so as I had feared. Again, just tremendous back and forth basketball down the stretch. I'd say maybe other than the Florida game, that's the most fun I've had watching Missouri basketball all year. But again, back to a point that a million college basketball people have made, and I'll just pile on here, but my goodness, guys, if the officiating is going to be this inconsistent, which apparently it's going to be for the rest of my life, can we at least play quarters or reset the fouls after 10 minutes? If you're such a traditionalist, you want to keep the halves. But it's just bizarre to me that men's college basketball is the only form of college basketball on the planet that plays it this way. But by all means, let's just have free throw contests for the last 10 minutes of every game. Great stuff, college basketball. Keep it up. Clearly, nobody is in charge of this sport or cares about its future. But back to the game, as I pointed out, Missouri trailed 29-27 10 minutes in, and really it probably had its biggest lull the next 4 minutes or so, and about 6 minutes and 30 seconds left, the Tigers still were stuck on 27 and trailing by 5. Well, it looked like there was a play where A&M goaltended a Mark Mitchell shot in the paint, and Dennis Gates decided to call a timeout and yell at head referee Pat Adams for a while. And I thought, you know what? This is a bit of a dangerous game to play here, Coach. Missouri has not been called for a foul yet. I was liking how the game was called, so that was why that was my note there. I was going, ooh, let's maybe this is not the time. Don't get me wrong. I thought that was a goaltend too. But now looking back on it, I think maybe Dennis Gates just felt his team relaxing a little bit, whatever it might be. And it may not have been so much about the goaltend and just trying to keep his team engaged and fired up, whatever it might be. Because for as many strengths as this team has, one thing I noticed early is personality-wise, really other than Shawn Phillips, is a notable exception here. But basically everybody else on the team is pretty even-keeled for the most part. So I think Dennis Gates is almost being more demonstrative this season and more fiery with the officials, that type of thing. It almost seems like he's adjusting a little bit for this particular group. At least that's my psychoanalysis here from the 20th row. And you know what? I think a miracle may have happened yesterday. I think I found an SEC network analyst other than John Sunvol that I actually enjoy listening to. Yes, I thought King McClure was really good on the broadcast yesterday, or really well on the broadcast, as he mistakenly said a couple of times. But I'm just busting balls there. For real, King McClure, I thought his analysis was spot on for the most part, including in the first half where obviously the Aggies were hitting a barrage of three-pointers. Obviously give their shot-making credit, but King McClure had made a point that I've made many times over the Dennis Gates era, which is that the Tigers were over-helping and that time and time again there were open shots on the backside of the defense. Well, that was certainly true, and the broadcast did a good job of pointing out some clips where that was obviously the case. But the reason I'm really bringing this up is credit to Missouri and Dennis Gates. I thought they adjusted better in the second half and did a much better job of holding the Aggies down. Again, until really the last few minutes when it was just back and forth both ways, I thought Missouri had a pretty good defensive adjustment there, at least avoiding the overhelping of the first half. That's something to me that has been a long-standing problem at times in the Dennis Gates era. But you know what? Speaking of Dennis Gates and his coaching, you know what? Again, I'm kind of expecting the big dance now. Still a long way to go here in the season with 7 ball games to go, and I would say 3 is the magic number for the Tigers. But if Dennis Gates makes 3 tournaments in his first 4 years as coach, that's pretty tough to complain about, isn't it? So let's take a little more stock of Dennis Gates and a little bit more on this ball game coming up here in just a second. But you know what? Of course, it is tax season, but you don't have to stress out because TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand things off and move on with your life. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress, or most importantly to me, the guesswork of knowing if you're actually in the right legally or not. Instead of spending hours trying to figure this out, have some actual peace of mind with TurboTax. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, just file by February 28. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. So the thing about the Dennis Gates era so far is I think most Missouri basketball fans like Dennis Gates. The problem is there's just been some real bad taste left in your mouth at times. Of course, last season was a lot of fun for the most part. Unfortunately, again, you're left with the bad taste in your mouth of the Drake game. Even Dennis Gates' first year, which was a heck of a lot of fun, in some ways similar to this Bucky McMillan run with Texas A&M. Hey, the Tigers even won their first round game. Unfortunately, when you play 15th seeded Yale in round 2, you want to win that one. Again, a bad taste in the mouth, and we don't even have to get into the 0-19 debacle. But again, if the 0-19, if that's just a weird exception to the rule, if the other 3 years, if Dennis Gates is going to make the NCAA tournament, you got to be happy with this start to the Dennis Gates era. And obviously, well, he's going to be making it to next year. There's literally no question about that at this point, with Jason Crow Jr. coming in, one of the biggest talents Missouri has ever recruited in its history. Going to be interesting to see what happens there. But as I said a few weeks ago, and boy, during the December stretch, I was really down on this team and the program, and not so much the program, but just the team this season for sure. And then Missouri obviously beats Kentucky, beats Florida. And I said, hey, if Dennis Gates gets this team to the tournament, because obviously there's been real injury problems here to start the season. Jaden Stone, has a broken finger, hand, whatever that injury was that took him out for a few weeks and really hurt Missouri. Trent Pierce was out for the first month or two of the season practically. Obviously, he's made a tremendous difference. And, well, the transfer portal hasn't gone perfectly either. Sebastian Mack, for example, cannot even get on the court. So like I said, if Missouri can get into the tournament this season, I think it's one heck of a coaching job. So I still think that, obviously. So I just want to give credit where credit is due. And again, 3 wins to go here. I would say if Missouri wins 3 out of their last 7 games, with 4 of those games still remaining at home, I think they'll get there. Still a long way to go, but I think the odds are pretty much in their favor at this point. And one thing I wrote down, by the way, with a few minutes left in that game, in my notes, in all caps, by the way, to remind myself, I said, don't be mad if we lose. Because that's how encouraged I was by Missouri's performance yesterday. I thought, man, if we just, let's say the AG kid had somehow hit a buzzer beater there, Tigers win, Tigers lose by 1, obviously that would have been heartbreaking, and it would have been a ding against the resume versus a victory. But still, I would have been encouraged. Again, with 7 games left, I would have still felt like, you know what, I think we're in there. But to get that win in College Station, obviously, what a huge deal for, well, Dennis Gates and this program, and most importantly, me as a Missouri fan. And also, myself as a Missouri fan had to laugh once again as the Tigers at the end of the half should have gotten yet another shot clock violation on their final offensive possession, but somehow the referees did not see that the ball was still in the shooter's hand there, and that actually did matter. It ended up being a 1.3 seconds on the clock versus 4.5, but regardless, another end of half shot clock violation. Again, a great coaching job from Dennis Gates this season, but can we just start the offense maybe 3-4 seconds quicker, something, because the shot clock violations at the end of the half are getting comical at this point. But hey, thanks, by the way, for joining me here on Locked On Mizzou. And by the way, one other note before I get out of here. Did you notice Frank HAITH on the sidelines for Texas A&M? Well, my wife noticed. I did not. I was going, wait, I thought he was with Texas. Googled it real quick. Sure enough, she was right. Frank HAITH now with the Texas A&M Aggies as well. Well-traveled is the former Missouri head coach. But you know what? You don't have to travel too far to get more of me. You can go to the Everydayer Club for $5 a month or $50 a year. Well, you can get access to the Discord server, for example, where just this morning I had, one of our everydayers shot a message in the Locked On Mizzou portion of Discord and asked, is Trent Pierce an NBA player? Well, I gave him that answer. You can see it if you check out the Everydayer Club. We also get access to ad-free audio as well. Check it out, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer or in the description of this podcast. And until next time, I am John Miller. Thanks as always for listening to Locked On Mizzou.